Welcome to Talkn Sports with Rusty Clark, and in our quest to bring you sports from all over the state, the Talkn Sports with Rusty Clark Caravan Van headed to West Tennessee to see the Grizzlies try and make it to make the first playoff win in the history of Memphis Grizzly basketball. Unfortunately, on our budget from Performance Medicine, we got as far as Bulls Gap before we ran out of gas, and two folks brought us into their home and let us watch it on TV, gave us soup, beans, and cornbread, and gave us gas money back home. But the Grizzlies, a big win, first in the history of the game, of Memphis Grizzly playoff history. We were able to see that.
Yes, the Buffalo Wild Wings, a tremendous presentation.
Buffalo Wild Wings.
All the fine people, Bulls Gap and the Buffalo Wild Wings there.
We had the Grizzlies going. We had the Predators from Nashville. We had the Braves, and everybody there was a Predators, a Braves, and a Grizzlies fan.
It was a good time to be there.
Predators get a win, overtime, 2-2. I would comment on the hockey game, but
3-2 now.
Is it 3 games to 2?
They lead the series 3 games.
3-2. I would comment on the game, but I don't understand it at all, except when they fight. And the Braves, 3 straight over the Giants. Tonight, or last night, for those of y'all viewing the show for the first time, this week, in the third game, 10th inning, bases loaded, off of Brian Wilson, Nate McLouth. Things are going good when Nate McLouth drives in the winning run. 2-run single off of Brian Wilson, one of the great closers in the game. And the Grizzlies get their first win. So a good week. And another little story I'll give you on the way back. And this is one of the great sales pitches I've ever heard. We stopped to get gas. We go in. We're in the gas station. Big, huge macadamia nut cookies. They're at the front. We got a drink. I said, okay, I think I'm going to have me one of those macadamia nut cookies. The guy says, hey, they're 2 for $2. And they're made right here. And I'm like, okay. Mama always said if you could find cookies made in a gas station, you need to buy them. Okay, special oil, special grease, right back to oil lube. We got the bakery going.
He didn't think it was quite as funny as we did.
He didn't find it as humorous as we did, but we thought it was kind of cute.
Back to some local sports. Dobyns-Bennett baseball had a big week. You start out the week DB over Tennessee High in a 9-8 game. That was pretty interesting as the game progressed. Seabolt hits a home run. Connor Gunn has 3 RBIs, and Reed Matthews goes 2 for 3. Go ahead and explain Quillen and the whole situation that went on.
Well, Aaron Quillen comes in, 3rd inning, does a great job. Anytime you pitch at the, I don't know what the name of the field is, softball field's what it should be called. Tennessee High field, it's about 290 to left field. Maybe 300 to right. It's a pitcher's just begged not to pitch there. Quillen comes in, shuts them down to the last inning. We're up 9-6. They get 2 runs, runners on first and second, down to the last out. And he gets that last out and gets a big win over Tennessee High, who is challenging Dobyns-Bennett for second place in the conference.
That's big for Quillen. He's now 5-1. Huge pitching from our junior there. Then Dobyns-Bennett goes on to play Crockett later on in the week, and an 11-1 victory where Connor Gunn has 4 RBIs. Peyton Taylor just an absolutely exceptional job holding Crockett to only 1. Crockett, a team that has been playing pretty well this year.
Crockett bounces back and forth. They get a win over Science Hill, and then we beat them 11-1. The Burger King beat them 10-0. Kevin Cannell, Daniel Boone. I think it all depends on who they put on the hill. And that's baseball. If you got a great pitcher on the hill, a lot of the other things can go wrong and you can win. Peyton Taylor, I believe, went to 6-0 with that victory.
Then Dobyns-Bennett plays Virginia High, not the final game, but they win that game 5-3 with Seabolt pitching 4 innings and then Cook coming in to finish the last 3. Dobyns-Bennett quarterback duo right there, getting the win over Virginia High.
And 2 clutch performances. Virginia High was a game that was not scheduled. Pigeon Forge canceled out on us. Maybe a car show in Pigeon Forge. I don't know.
Dolly Parton was near.
Dolly within the vicinity, which she can be within the vicinity and be a mile away. But Virginia High scheduled that game with us. Big game. Cross-state rival. Virginia High, always an excellent baseball team. 5-3 win over them is a great win. And then Saturday, Dobbins-Bennett gets a big win over Anderson County. Connor Gunn, big week.
Huge week for Connor Gunn. Any week that you have close to 10 RBIs in a week, you're just an exceptional.
Probably more than I had in my career.
Definitely more than I had in my career. That's probably Little League, middle school combined right there. But an exceptional job from him. Good to see some production from some younger players, some juniors and sophomores getting some good action this year.
Big week coming up for Dobbins-Bennett baseball. Sullivan South at home Monday at 6. Daniel Boone away Tuesday. Sullivan South away on Wednesday. Unicoi, I believe, on Friday. Big week. Sullivan South challenging to be in the upper echelon. Be interesting to see how they handle the M&M boys, Matthews and Millsap.
He's got him a little nickname for him.
And they loved it.
Oh, they did. Dobbins-Bennett softball plays Tennessee High earlier on in this week. Gets a victory 2-1. Go ahead and explain what went on in that game.
Emily Anderson, a 2-run double. Emily Anderson back off the disabled list. You know, if you would have it as it is in the big leagues. We've lost our catcher, our third baseman, our pitcher, our shortstop. Emily Anderson gets back this week, gets a big 2-run double. Samantha Lilly, the winning pitcher. And coming up this week, Pink out next Friday, Susan Coleman game. I'm looking forward to seeing Coach Andy Hubbard in his pink jersey. And then Tuesday, Pink game for Kellen Good. So that'd be the following Tuesday. Everybody do your best to turn out for that game.
And then looking on, we have the Dan Crow Tom Cornhour relays. Dan Crow relays formerly this year began the DCTC reign of relays. Pretty exciting. A lot of things went on. You know, steeplechase. You got a lot of different events that you don't always see at every meet going on. Good meet to be at.
John Battle, runner, wins the steeplechase, followed by Jamie Armenica and Molly Norris. Maybe the highlight of the meet. Young man from Science Hill who was entered in the steeplechase to have a good time, no question. Maybe 100 people lined up over on the side of the steeplechase, and they're all hollering as he comes over.
Cannonball.
Cannonball. Cannonball. And he goes across the steeplechase, does a cannonball, big splash, under the water, and comes back up with a big smile on his face.
What
and that's always fun
What
to
he
see.
neglected to tell you was there was a runner from, I believe, possibly Virginia High, goes and tries to jump the steeplechase, and as he comes back down in the water, the steeple breaks in half and hits him across his shoulders. A little bit tougher of a thing to come back from.
That's good though, because when I was coaching at Chilhowie and we were coming down here to do the steeplechase, and the only event we had one of our guys convinced that it was a run down the church circle where you chased every steeple and then ran back Watauga Street. And he got back just in time for us to go back to Chilhowie.
Then you have another couple of events that went on.
Tennessee High, boy, one of the best hurdlers I have seen. Won the 100-meter, the 300-meter hurdles. Jennifer Cannon. I mean, she is as smooth as they come. Obvious that Randy Urban, a former state championship hurdler,
Former state record holder.
He was at one time. But it's obvious he's worked with her. And she is really a special hurdler. Malik Foreman.
Continuing his reign of dominance at the top of the sprinters world. Wins both the 100 and the 200 with, I believe, something like 15 schools there.
22 schools.
Excuse me, 22 schools there. You know, a very broad range of competition. Still takes both the 100 and the 200 home. Big for him. Then the 800, Chris McElroy and Aaron Freed both win those. You know, long distance again, both of those juniors. Malik, of course, a sophomore, got great underclassmen doing big things for the track and baseball team. Then you have the 100 in the girls as well. A freshman, Crystal Durr, wins that, and the 200, Haley Phipps, a senior, an upperclassman, finally getting an event in.
And, you know, Haley Phipps is one of the hardest workers I've seen. She's been in the training room all spring. She's been a great relay runner for us. 4x1, 4x2. Dobbins Bennett wins. 4x4, Tennessee High wins. 4x1, Dobbins Bennett. 4x2, Jefferson County. And the 4x4.
This is all boys.
I love the 4x4. I mean, it's guts, it's speed. Devon Swafford came around the corner just about where the discus cage was, and you could see it in the one step. It was a new gear. It was a new gear. I mean, it was something I wish my Vega had years ago. A new gear. It shifted up to a different level. He goes from 2 steps behind to about 15 yards ahead. Great conference track action coming up in Johnson City Thursday and Friday. Thursday will be field events and qualifying.
And then, of course, you have the Music City Half Marathon Saturday in Nashville, which one Graham Clark will be participating in.
That will be a 13.1 mile run. The last time I ran it, I was right with the Kenyans for almost 10 yards. They boxed me out. They're a team. They know how to get you out of the race. Their coach puts them out there when they're practicing and says, boys, it's a jungle out there, and they run their race. Other big deal, Kevin Ware out of the Atlanta area. You remember that story? The young man that asked out of his signing with University of Tennessee when Bruce Pearl was let go and re-recruited by Tennessee. Who else recruited him?
Looks like Central Florida.
Central Florida, Louisville, Rick Pitino. Let's see, who else did I see? Georgia recruited him. Didn't let him go in the locker room, but he signs with Central Florida, and that I don't know, that was one that UT should have kept somehow.
Article in the USA Today.
Wyoming Post, American Legion Post number 6. They got a player, Brandon Nemo, one of the top 50 prospects in the nation. And why is it that he's listed as American Legion Post number 6?
No baseball in Wyoming.
No high school baseball in
Wyoming. We mentioned this last week. We figured out the 3 states that don't have it.
Wyoming, Montana, South Dakota. Also 3 states that have 2 seasons, basically, winter and the 4th of July. Why do they like players out of there? Why do the scouts say they like players out of there? They're tough. They've played on 40-40 days. You know what a 40-40 days?
No. I'd say it's probably not good, though.
40 miles an hour wind, 40-degree weather. Bitter baseball. Worse than bitter face with Keystone. Bitter baseball. They support their baseball program by staying up all night, fixing breakfast burritos, and selling them. That's how they go play ball games. 5 layers of clothes to play. 5 layers. You know, we gripe about having to put on an extra shirt. And Brandon Nemo's batting cage is set up in the family barn. That's got to be a tough guy.
Bound to be.
Bound to be a tough guy. So, he is one of the top 50 prospects in America this year. And so those of you who think, man, he also played baseball. He also played football. He also was on the basketball team. So those of you who think, man, if I'm going to be big time, I got to specialize. I got to do this one thing. Guys, do everything you can do as long as you can make a grade. Okay? Let's do a little Mayberry trivia because we got a special guest today.
We got somebody that we're very excited to bring to you all this week. Going to be promoting his book. But first, we're going to handle some Mayberry. First, last week's answers.
What did Barney and Gomer follow back to the campsite? The web-footed, red-crested lake loon. Come on, man. Use your nature senses. They were lost. Why did Gomer leave Mayberry?
He joined the Marines.
He joined the Marines. One of the worst versions of the Marine song Gomer sang to Andy. And what did Barney say about Ernest T. Bass's prospects for a date at Mrs. Wiley's? Throw a quail up in the room and they'd all point. Dogs, Andy, they're all dogs. Women's livers, I'm sorry. It was a different time, okay? How about this week's?
We've got some new Mayberry for you. Who did Gomer want excuse me. Where are we at?
What comes after he's a doctor, she's a pharmacist? Okay? Why Barney wants Gomer next to the window in his new car, and Andy's favorite dish. People, send your emails in. Get those cards and letters coming. And we look forward to getting you the answers. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we have a special guest with us today.
Today we have Skeeter Swift, ETSU basketball legend. He has wrote a book about his life, and we're very excited to promote it here on the show. We're going to jump right into it.
Skeeter, 2 questions.
Go ahead.
Is it true you never met a shot you didn't like?
That's true, but people don't understand. I like to pass the ball more than I used to like to shoot it. And if he was open, you got the ball. But I wanted the ball at the end of the game. I either wanted to win it or I wanted to lose it. I knew I had control. So, yes, there's not a shot that I didn't like.
Great shooters always like they like to shoot the basketball, don't they?
Sure they do.
Daggone right.
It's a confidence factor.
And is it true that you told Muhammad Ali, Mama didn't raise no fool?
Oh, yes. We were the Pittsburgh Buzzards, not the Condors. I was coming out of the locker room, and Ali was putting on three shows. And so when I came around, I lifted my head up, and he said, "I'm going to knock you out." And I said, "Your mama didn't raise a fool." So, yes, that's a true story. I was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
I've had the opportunity this weekend to read Harley, Skeeter Swift's book, which is called Skeeter. And I didn't get all the way through it. We have been actually on the road this weekend. But I got to the point where he was coaching basketball under Jerry Falwell, which does not seem like the match of matches. So it kind of sounds like my first marriage, to be honest with you. But an entertaining read, and just take us through some of it.
Well, the book, I have always wanted to write a book. And I wanted to write it so people could understand who I was. Not condone or like what I did, but to understand it. And so I had an outstanding writer in Trey Williams, and we put this book together, and we've got high reviews. And it starts from when I was very young, to when I ran away from home, to when I went to East Tennessee State, and then when I went into the pros. It is hilarious in sections. You may cry in other sections. But it's a real good read, and people tell me once they start reading, except that Dom's been a football coach, you won't put it down. I'm sorry, Coach.
I wouldn't have put it down, but we finally had to come back from Murfreesboro.
You had soup, beans, and
that's right. I mean, they ran out.
I understand.
They ran out. But I had the privilege of watching Harley Skeeter Swift play many, many times at the old Memorial Gym. Eddie Durham would be working graveyard. Mm-hmm. He'd take us over to the games, and never forget memorable games. Wish they'd have had the 3-point line back in those days. Yes. But Skeeter played with a great cast, and junior year made it to the Sweet 16. And talk a little bit about that experience.
Well, my freshman year, I was told there was going to be 5 high school All-Americans, and we were going to be in a new gym. Well, I was the only high school All-American. So who did we have but Richard Arnold, a DB Indian who transferred from Carson Newman, Worley Ward, a DB Indian who transferred from North Carolina State, and Leroy Fisher, who was already there at East Tennessee State University. So that was the first conflict. So when we played the blue and gold game, it was the 3 red shirts, myself and another freshman by the name of George Willing from New York, and we beat the varsity. That wasn't a good thing because we had to stay after the game and tell the varsity beat us. And my comment to Coach Brooks, which if you knew me back then, I used to let my gluteus maximus overload my oratory system. He said, "I'm going to run you." And I said, "Well, Coach, I didn't recruit these losers." "Well, you don't say that. You think that and keep it to yourself." But as we went into our sophomore year, I was told that the only time that Memorial Gym was full is when they pulled the stands out from the stage. And that was when we played Western Kentucky. So that had to change, and it did change. And we was full every ball game at home thereafter until I graduated, not just because of me. First, Leroy was an outstanding perimeter shooter. Worley, best athlete on our team. By far, he was the instrument that caused us to beat Florida State in the Mid-East Regionals to go to the Sweet 16. And Richard, he calmed me down. Every time I got hostile and mad, he'd take the ball from me and he'd keep it until I was kind of settled. So they were three not only outstanding basketball players from Dobyns-Bennett, they were three outstanding community people in Kingsport and for Dobyns-Bennett. So I was very fortunate. And of course we had Ernie Sims, who was the center, and he's passed. And of course, if you don't know it, Worley has passed. It's been a number of years. But it was a great turn beating Florida State, ranked 5th in the nation, and to go on to play in the Sweet 16.
Mike Kretzer.
Oh, yes.
On that team. I remember the guy that I thought was maybe the jumpingest guy on that team, Tim Fleming.
Yes, from Florida, from down in Florida. We called him Stink. And Bob Hall, who's been teaching in the Washington County school system for 38 years, and Stink were roommates, and he did stink. I'm sorry to say that, but we used to take radiation treatment over there to kind of help him out. But we had a good group. We had 9 players in double figures. 9 players in double figures. And the 10th one was only 0.2 of a point from being in double figures. Or we would have had 10 in double figures.
Did that ever get you a free cheeseburger at Sammy's Apex or the Cottage?
It's funny you ask. I'm having a book signing at the Cottage on the 21st, and yes, that was my hangout, and yes, I did drink a lot of beer there.
I was just going to ask about cheeseburgers, okay?
Well, they say they competed. The Apex competed against the Cottage, who had the best hamburger. And I always went to the Cottage. Some people went to the Apex because the people from the VA Center would come down there and drink beer, and you ask them what the state of Kansas was, and they answered, you buy them beer. You know, Montana, Idaho, you buy them a beer. That was a true story. I always stayed over on the at the Cottage, and I think Jim Hughes was a gentleman who owned it at that time.
I remember the gentleman that was the main cook at the Apex never took his cigarette out of his mouth.
No.
The ashes would fall off in the French fries.
Yeah, you had ash fries.
Yeah, and it just kept talking with that cigarette on his lip.
Exactly.
But a fabulous book. Talk a little bit about your experience in the old ABA.
Well, the old ABA was kind of interesting because it was a physical league, and they would take a lot of players from the Eastern League. Eastern League being up in Pennsylvania, and they were physically and it got rough sometimes. But then we had some outstanding players like Artis Gilmore and George Gervin and James Silas and Rick Berry, who's not one of my favorites, but he's a leading scorer in both the NBA and the ABA, and just so many. And the 3-point was so exciting. Of course, Louisville, the Kentucky Colonels, Louisville was the only place that had a red, white, and blue on the top of the backboard. And every time you shot and made it, you hear this, woo! And that ball would turn up on the top of the backboard, and people didn't understand why more people shot 3-pointers in Louisville than they did anywhere else. But it was a good league. They knew what they were doing, except some teams they placed in areas where they wanted them to fail. Okay. They wanted them. Pittsburgh was one of them. Memphis was one of them. But then you had your Indiana, you had your Kentuckys, you had your New York Nets. So you had some good teams in San Antonio. But I was very blessed not to have any major injuries. And I made one All-Star game, but I tore my right knee up, so I couldn't participate. And I led the league in 3-point field goal percentage, and I was in the top 10 all-time free throw shooters. So I had a pretty good career.
You talked about Artis Gilmore.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know how this comes back to me all of a sudden, but there was another 7-footer that played with him at Jacksonville State.
Mm-hmm.
Pembroke Burroughs III.
Mm-hmm.
Did he make the league?
That I do not know. I do know that at Jacksonville, I think Roy Joe Williams was there, I think.
Joe Williams, yeah.
Joe Williams was there. They called the twosome was Batman and Robin. Okay, Rex Morgan was Robin, and Artis was Batman, and that's what they promoted, all over the state. And they had a good basketball team.
Oh, excellent! I remember watching them play in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were a great team. How about playing for Babe McCarthy?
The greatest ambassador to be a basketball coach in the country. Now, story behind Adolph Rupp. Babe Mississippi State beat Kentucky more times than any other school in the Southeastern Conference. Bailey Howe was playing for Babe, who played for the Boston Celtics. What they used to do is take dead skunks and put them under Adolph's bench. And Adolph did not like him at all. Adolph was a difficult person to like. But Babe McCarthy, hey, he was a B-52 airplane flyer. He dressed, except his pants was above his ankles. Okay, but he was cleanly dressed, and he was from Tupelo, Mississippi. And he tells a story, it's too long, about how he got caught and kicked out of Mississippi State when he was messing with a young lady, and a policeman came up in the car and said, "Ooh, Babe McCarthy, we know you in there, come on out." And so he had nowhere to run because there was a big tree, and that was the only tree that was surrounding the house. So that got him fired. Back in those times, that was one. But as far as a basketball coach, wonderful. As far as a person, bless his heart, it was young girls and Jack Daniels straight. But he was a great ambassador to the game of basketball. It truly was.
Bones McKinney?
Bones McKinney. New Orleans, Louisiana, they were giving Bones a fit down there, and he was sitting on the thing. He sent Buddy Taylor to go get him a Jack's beer. They're the nastiest smelling beers that you'd ever want to drink. And so here come Buddy, and those guys kept messing with him back there, so Bones waited until there was an infraction or turnover, and he reached down and got that beer and threw it over his shoulder and got all over him. And then he took a towel and went back there, and he was diving them off, you see. But back then they were trying to get notables. There was somebody like Bones, Bill Sharman with L.A., and they were using anything to create interest in the league. We didn't have a TV contract. I don't think we knew how to spell TV, to be honest with you.
Sometimes you got to know when to just sit back and listen to some stories.
It's like somebody said, you can't write a book till you read one. That's why I hadn't written one yet. But how did they get this book?
Oh, yes, I appreciate you saying that. SkeeterSwift.com. SkeeterSwift.com. It will be one of the best reads you will have. It's not a novel. It's not fiction. It's a true life story of someone who, as he went along in the toughest game he ever played, the game of life, people didn't understand him, except Richard Arnold. He understood me.
Well, Richard Arnold's understood a lot of people in his day. He's a great guy.
Oh, and you were a great guy.
Yeah.
No, hey. You say you don't know that. I want you to check it out. I did my homework. It says you're the winningest football coach in the state of Tennessee. Dobbins Bennett is the second winningest football program in the country, and Illinois is number one. And then Jay Sally, who is never brought up much, but is one of the great athletes from Dobbins Bennett High School, right?
Absolutely.
A great football player.
Jay Sally just passed away, and we told a story about him on the air a couple of weeks ago, that he told me that he got on one of those talking weight machines, and he got on it, and he waited for it to say something to him, and it said, Jay told me, he said, come back when you buy yourself. Come back when you buy yourself.
And Coach, he gets, when he gets, not embarrassed, but when he gets red, his head, that's why it's bald-headed. His red stays red.
It's amazing the amount of hair I could grow up here if I really wanted to.
I will say one last thing if I don't get cut off. I do appreciate both of you allowing me to be on your show. Rusty, this is the first time I met you, but your dad has been special in my life ever since I played ball. Why? I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. But
good possibility.
He is as good a person as you'd ever want to meet. And I'm just very thankful that you're my friend.
The check's in the mail. I feel the same way about you.
Thank you.
Skeeter Swift, great read. Thank y'all for tuning in. Come back next week, same time.